A new Nintendo console meant a new Mario game. This masterpiece was released in Japan in June and North America in September 96. Europe wouldn't see a release of this game or system until March 1997. 10 out of 10 from Edge, 9.75 out of 10 from Game Informer, and 9.4 out of 10 from GameSpot. With ratings like this game was like nothing else in 1996, as Nintendo hit another winner with this game due to the amazing level design, ability to move Mario in a variety of different directions, and for delivering the first 3D Mario game of all time. Much in the same way that the original Mario titles set the benchmark in the 2D era of gaming, this game acts as a basis for all 3D titles that we all play today. Super Mario 64 follows much the same storyline as the ones before it, and is basically an enhanced remake of the classic titles, and with the ability to really explore different levels and worlds in ways that have never been seen before in 2D titles. This game was a real winner for all fans of the game series. It would go on to sell 11 million copies in its lifetime, picking up many awards along the way, and nobody that opened this game on Christmas Day would have been left disappointed. This is where it all began for the Crash Bandicoot series, seeing its first release in the later stages of 1996 in both North America and Europe for the PlayStation. It was heavily compared to Donkey Kong Country when it was first released, and it would go on to become one of the best-selling games of all time on the PlayStation, helping Sony really get a foothold in the console market along the way. It was re-released for the Sony Greatest Hits lineup in September 15, 1997, and as a Platinum Range title in March 1998. The object of this game was to guide Crash, the main character of the game series, through the levels over 3 islands in order to save his girlfriend, and to stop the evil Dr. Neo Cortex, who plans to take over the world. Crash Bandicoot would spend nearly 2 years on a leading North American market research company's top 20 PlayStation sales, before finally dropping off in September 1998. It was also the first non-Japanese game to receive a gold prize in Japan for sales of more than 500,000. So this game was hotly anticipated by game fans looking for a new platform game to get into over the festive season, and would pave the way for further titles in the coming years. This monster title would see its first release on the Sega Saturn and would be followed by the more popular version for the PlayStation and PC in the coming months. Released in late 1996 everywhere, it introduced us all to Lara Croft, an archaeologist searching for ancient treasures. In the first installment of Tomb Raider, you would need to guide Lara through levels of which we had never seen before on the Saturn and PlayStation. They were so well detailed and pretty challenging that it would go on to set the standard of many games that we all play today. To help you through the levels, you could walk, run and swim during the differently themed levels throughout the game, whilst also shooting enemies, sidestepping, hanging off edges and diving from great heights into the water below. This game had absolutely everything. The storyline to this installment of Tomb Raider is that Lara sets out on an expedition to recover a mysterious artifact called the Scion from a lost tomb in the mountains of Peru. Whilst in Peru, everything kicks off and a fast-paced storyline ensues, with Lara ultimately heading to a remote island where mining operations of Natla Technologies have partially exposed the Great Pyramid of Atlantis. Amazing game, and it's considered to be one of the greatest of all time on the PlayStation. It would go on to sell more than 4 million copies and see many sequels in the coming years. This was the follow-up to the smash hit Tekken that was released in 1994, with Tekken 2 seeing its first release in the arcades in 1995. It would see a staggered release for the PlayStation in 1996, from March for Japan, August in North America and October in Europe, which would lead to it becoming one of the best-selling games for the festive period. Following the same blueprint to that of the original Tekken, with additions such as attack reversals, back throws, chin throws and sidesteps, this game was heavily praised for innovations in console fighting games. It would go on to sell more than 5.4 million copies in its lifetime and see many sequels in the coming years. Speaking of sequels, Tekken 2 was also included on Tekken 5's Arcade History mode for the PlayStation 2. It has also seen a release for the PlayStation 3 and PSP via the PlayStation Network in the last few years.
Hey! Come here!
There's nothing more Christmassy than running around shooting zombies. This smash hit would lead to Resident Evil series games becoming a household name in the coming years. Released in 1996, it would go on to sell more than 5 million copies and is dubbed one of the most important games of all time. The object of this game is to uncover the mystery of a mansion and ultimately escape alive. Your character is a member of a special law enforcement task force who are trapped in the mansion populated by dangerous creatures. Whilst trying to escape, you are met with plenty of difficult enemies, puzzles and many heart-stopping moments. Although this isn't really a Christmas sort of game, it would have been on many teenagers' lists and anticipated on Christmas morning. The sequel to Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, which moved the series into a proper 3D environment. As with Mario 64, you would have been hard pushed to have found a bad review of this game on its release, with 5 out of 5 from GamePro and 4.3 out of 5 from Nintendo Power to name just a few. It was released to Japan in December 96, North America February 97 and Europe in June 97. It would go on to sell more than 8 million copies in its lifetime and become one of the leading titles for the N64. One of the major changes apart from the 3D gameplay was that all the characters were now divided into 3 categories called lightweights, middleweights and heavyweights. Each of these categories meant for different racing, as lightweights would be faster with heavyweights slower, so there was now the ability to match up players of differing abilities and allow for closer races and a more even playing field. As with the first game, the object was to take control of one of 8 playable characters, which were Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Wario and Koopa, guiding them through your chosen game mode. All tracks and power-ups on this game were themed around the Mario series of games. This instalment of Mario Kart would also introduce us to the multiplayer mode that we all now associate with Mario Kart games today. Extremely popular game and one of the biggest sellers in the run-up to Christmas 1997. Following the original success from the first Tomb Raider game, it wasn't long until we saw another title. Released everywhere in October 97, this installment would prove again to be as big a hit as the first and would go on to sell more than 4.3 million copies. It was praised for its many new features that could now be used alongside returning features from the first game. You could now use a snow scooter and a motorboat in certain levels, along with the many new things that Lara could now do, such as climb ladders and perform mid-air rolls, which would allow you to land in the opposite direction to that you took off in. The storyline to this game that Lara sets out on a journey to retrieve a mythical dagger, which was a weapon used by the Emperor of China. This mission will see her travel the world defeating enemies throughout larger and graphically better levels. Tomb Raider 2 would go on to win many awards in the coming years, and would only strengthen the good name of Tomb Raider. There is literally so much to say on this game that it's almost going to be impossible to say it all in 30 second slot, but here goes. Now, even though this game was released in early January 1997, it was still one of the most popular and sought after games at Christmas later that year. Even before this game was released, there was a huge marketing campaign, and this game would go on to sell more than 9 million copies in its lifetime. Set in a dystopian world, the game centres on a mercenary called Cloud Strife, joins with several others to stop the mega corporation Shinra, which is draining the life of the planet to use as an energy source. As the story progresses, the situation escalates, and Cloud and his aliases face the game's main bosses towards the game's end. This game was another massive hit for the Final Fantasy series, and would only go on to strengthen the game title name.